Happy Monday! Welcome to Monday Night Grind. I'm still getting used to saying that. My name is Grindhead Jim. We're here to talk about collecting and all kinds of stuff. Tonight, the question is what Rarity is about. Before I get into that subject matter, we're going to catch up. So I do see Epic Badger in the house. Says howdy howdy. Home early enough to watch live. Yay indeed. Bjorn in the house with his word that means everything. Ian Sweeney's here. Good to see you, mate. And that's all I have for chat so far. But it's early. It's early. Welcome to the stream. One thing that I did not realize when we went live last week, and we talked about what time we were going live and how this was going to work. We had daylight savings take effect here in the U.S. over the weekend. So everyone who marked their calendars for 4 p.m. Or 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last week, if they don't account for that, oops. So sorry about that. It's actually an hour later than... So basically, if you are someone who doesn't account for daylight savings, this essentially is the time you would normally have caught us back in the day. So, sorry about that. Squiggles is in the house. I see Acronel over on Twitch joining us. We are, of course, simulcasting to both YouTube and Twitch. Robert's Infinite Realms is here. Says, hey, party people. Good to see you all. Good to see you all. So, it is Monday. There's been a weekend. There's been some stuff. Acronel was in the middle of making donuts at work, and suddenly it was 3:30 a.m. Exactly. That's kind of how this works. Over the weekend, Stu of Universal Toy Collector and Georgie and just a fleet of people participated in the now annual Give Kids the World Village charity stream. Raised over $9,000, which is amazing. So big shout out to them. I participated in a small fashion, but had a blast doing so. And really, really glad that this continues to grow. And yes, we will be doing our sister version of that this fall. Exactly when that happens, I don't know. It would probably need to be within the first week of October. Or slightly before that, just because of the circumstances of us moving and stuff like that. So I'm not going to wait until we move to do that. I'd rather that be like the last thing we do before we actually get out of here. So just know we're still going to do it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Look forward to that. And Giraffe is here, says, what time is it? Where am I? Is this the future? I mean, kind of. Jason G, Mr. Garcia is in the house. Says, sup, my toy collect bros. And Joe DeBecky in the house. But that joke on the YouTube short you caught, that was good. One of, if not the first YouTube shorts I ever posted, which is talking about I don't understand YouTube shorts or don't click on Google ads. That's what it was. He left a comment. You need to find it. It's not hard to find. I've only done like 5 shorts. I'm not going to spoil it because it's really good. It's a good joke, and I appreciate you sharing that with the whole class. So, you guys are just flowing in here. Boba Hicks is in the house. Hello, sir. Nice to see ya. Nice to see ya. Grateful to you, chat. So, pardon me. Rarity is a concept, and I think that when it comes to collecting, there's different ways of looking at it. Sometimes we think about, the Holy Grail kind of toy or physical media, for example, where you're after it because you just really want that thing. But a Grail item isn't always rare. Oftentimes it's expensive. But it is often rare, but it isn't always, right? And this is part of what we're talking about, rarity versus scarcity. Is it scarce? It could simply be scarce to you, meaning where you are, it's hard to find, or it's kind of weird. It just, everything's different. And Badger, when I said kind of weird, says stream didn't start automatically, just sat in the title card, had to refresh. Well, you're okay. You're okay. So, glad that all worked out for you guys. So, I think there's such a thing now as perceived rarity. You know, this whole idea of the fear of missing out, FOMO kicking in with collecting. And I think that FOMO raised sharply with the pandemic and every type of collecting that there is. I feel like a lot of people joined in the hobby or reignited their love of the hobby. You know, like my first thing that I did, I was collecting movies and physical games on a much higher level again. That was like for the first year, that's what I was doing. And then it came to pass like, well, okay, I got this raise and a promotion at work. I've got money that, you know, I have discretionary income I would not otherwise have. So I decided that I wanted to collect toys. And you all know that story. And we've also been following that journey from day one. You know, the very first toy I got, well, I made a video about. I made videos about a lot of stuff. Now, if I were to make a video about every package that comes through this house, through this household, I should say, that's nuts. I mean, you can't do that. So there's even, weirdly enough, a rarity to like the documentation process of this. I don't know that anyone has documented their entire collection as it happens at 100%, right? So with me, it's been more of a conceptual, and you do, of course, you physically can see things grow and whatnot, right? But Robert Sanford Wells says everything is scarce. I live where everything is scarce to get by the internet. I'm kind of where I'm at, and yes, a scarcity mindset. And Badger, there will most certainly be a live panel. That link is pinned in Patreon, and it is the most recent post on the YouTube community page for paid members. So if you pay into these and you want to be on the panel, we will do it a little bit later. So, kind of what sparked this idea for me was last week's Mattel Creations thing plus the Mythic Legions Dragon thing. So for those of you that may not really be in the know, let me share something here and we'll talk a bit about it. So we've got Hero. All right, we got Hero. This is a Mattel Creations exclusive, which is not a huge surprise. But what is different about him is that you have to have the Club Grayskull membership to get him. So this creates a certain sense of scarcity or exclusivity and so forth. Now, I did get the Club Grayskull membership the second it was announced, as soon as I was able to get it, out of sheer curiosity, frankly. And, you know, I didn't really expect a ton of reciprocation. I didn't expect to get a return on my investment, right? I just wanted to see what they were talking about. And the first exclusive figure they reveal is Hero, which is a somewhat sought-after figure. So it's a good one to start with. You know, he looks pretty damn good. And he's the standard Mattel Creations price, you know, plus that $10. What's weird to me is that during their Mattel Creations revealed live stream, which is like their big mini convention thing that they do, which is really just a big long commercial, and it's gotten worse as years have gone on, they told us what the next two figures were going to be, and that possibly those were going to be the 3 exclusive figures, period. So now you're basically marking up these 3 figures by $3.33, assuming that you want all 3 of those figures. I don't. The second exclusive figure is an Origins Buzzsaw Hordak, which I definitely do want. and I think the third one's like an oversized Moss Man for Masterverse, which although sounds awesome, I don't need. I have all the Masterverse figures that I want. I'm good. I've got my He-Man, my Skeletor, Hordak, and She-Ra. Boom, I'm good. I'm in perfect shape with those. So that means that each of those figures that I've talked about, Hero and Buzzsaw Hordak, were now going to cost me $5 more than what they would have otherwise. And these are, I guess, these are good figures to have. Sure, they're rare and everything. In this, like as far as like the vintage version, some of this stuff hasn't been made. You go on and on and on with this stuff. Cronell, picking up on earlier, says I have a ledger for one collection I'm working on, but everything else is very little else is documented, and not publicly documented either. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting. Giraffe loves all the Vac Metal Shine. I think he looks great. I'm looking forward to getting him. But what's interesting about this, and ESV says, when I started out collecting a list of 10 Kenner Star Wars figures I wanted, looking into getting them, I discovered nearly half of them were the last 17, which was a foreign concept to me at the time, which are physically rare and scarce. Gotcha. So, Boba Hicks wants to be buried in a Vac Metal casket. I mean, we'll see what can be done, sir, but we want you around a long time. So, this is perceived scarcity, perceived rarity by virtue of exclusive nature. However, we're we're several days into this reveal, the opportunity to actually get him, and he's still available. So I have a feeling that either they stocked a crazy amount of this, or they stocked a certain amount and then are going to do a second batch based upon, like a made-to-order kind of a thing, right? You would think this would have gone pretty quick if it was a straight Mattel Creations release, and that's probably true. They don't have a cap on how many you can get, as far as I know. Yeah, look at that. I can order 20 if I want. Of course, I don't want that many. I already pre-ordered one. But I did it on Saturday. I was kind of scared that I wasn't going to be able to get it because we were waiting for money to come in and stuff. But he came in, and I was able to get him, and that was that. So I feel like this is going to be one of those figures that, in a longer timeline, will be somewhat regarded as rare because the window to get him was relatively short and behind a paywall and everything. But I looked over on the Mattel Creations forums. There's a lot of people, a decent amount of people that are on there, and they snapped it up and they got them or whatever, and you see a lot of people talking about getting it and everything. I'm glad it's available. I'm not complaining about this. I don't think that paying that $10 means I should get stuff no one else can get. I don't want that for people. I don't see the point of this. And, given that there's going to be a few more figures coming out, if the other figures that come out are decent, and the availability time window remains, at least several days to a week, then I think the money is worth it. Because if they're doing a different availability model, or there's just less people flocking, or bots, or whatever you want to call it, and people can take their time and get it when they have the money over the course of a week or whatever, that, to me, makes more sense. That is worth $10 to me. To not have to battle with the fucking reseller bots. You know what I mean? I think that would be worth it. But there's no evidence that's exactly what's happening. There's no evidence of that. But I'm hoping that's what's happening. We don't know. We don't know. Goji is here. So I'm here. I forgot the time change. I almost did too. Giraffe says, I believe there are two more Powers of Grayskull figures this year for Club Grayskull. UK site shows April Motu is not needing a membership. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, there's definitely two more figures, but I don't think they're both Origins. I think one of them's going to be a Masterverse. I'll have to double check the stream, which I did record, so I would have a copy of it. Robert's Infinite Realm says, I'm glad I don't want any of these figures since I don't like the paywall idea. I don't like the idea either, but and here's the thing, and I bring it up all the time. I started collecting in my mid-40s, and I don't know how long this toy line is going to go for, or any of these toy lines are going to go for, and I'm in a position where it's like, you know, I don't care enough not to buy something on principle. If the toy is what I want and I have to pay to get the toy, I get the toy. That's it. You know, it's like we said, you know, everyone has an idea of how much they're willing to pay for something, right? And for me, Motu is something that I'm a lot more flexible with, because it means a lot to me to get what I consider to be a complete collection. Now, I don't have to have absolutely everything, but there are things that I definitely want, and I completely understand anyone who's like, I'm not paying $10 fucking just for the opportunity to buy this stuff. Totally get it. Now, as I said, if the result of this is that the availability window and quantity available are more flexible than traditional Mattel Creations releases, I think it's worth the $10. Regardless, I was going to get the membership out of curiosity. This first figure I was going to get no matter what, but I think that's for everybody. Ian Sweeney says, at least you get a membership card at Dakota Ring with the Grayskull membership. You did not. I wish you did. That'd be kind of fun. And TJC is here. Thank you. Good to see you. So let's go ahead and look at the other side of the coin. Now, this is the Mythic Legions. And I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this right. Beathir. That sounds right to me. The Pillar of the West. Dragon action figure. I have seen a lot of different scuttle on this particular beast. He is 31 inches long, 22 inches tall from wingtip to floor. Pretty big boy. You stretch out the tail, he takes up even more space. This is 100% crowdfund. They have, you know, basically you've got 1 month to get it, and that's that. Sales are final. Late 2026 is when you're supposed to get it. It is what it is. So, okay, so I am right. Gojitron says the other club figures will be a Masterverse, Oversized Mossman, and Origins Hurricane Hordak. So for me, you know, the extra $10 is, you know, whatever. Yeah, if everyone did a club membership, it'd be crazy. I completely agree. But $10 for the entire year, that doesn't bother me that much. If it's two figures, that's a $5 markup per figure. You look at these figures, the way they're packaged, okay? They're a deluxe figure, and deluxe figures base price was $20 when they first came out. And some places you got to pay $25 just because of markup or whatever. So in terms of the money, if there's just two figures out of the line that I'm getting each year for that membership price, the money plays out for the most part in terms of base price of the item. Okay, but I totally agree. I would not pay every single toy company a membership, and what other benefits may or may not be coming are completely in the wind. I doubt that I'm going to give a shit about them, but I understand. Acronel says, I like the idea more if they release behind the paywall initially to allow collectors more of a chance up front to get them, than have a limited amount purchasables per user after a month let out publicly large. I don't know if this will ever happen. They haven't been explicit about this, but obviously I hope this happens for people. And Acronel, I get what you're saying. He says, honestly, I lose more than $10 a year in change. it's one of those things, right? Everyone's different and no one's wrong. It's just you have a line to cross. When this dragon was revealed last year, I was over the moon. I thought, I don't do Mythic Legions, but this is a dragon that will fit anything. And the first thing I thought of when I saw him was the Black Star Dragon, which is a grail piece of mine, which I've kind of backed away from, knowing how brittle and easily damaged that particular toy is. But this looks a very similar and much bigger version of that toy, which I think that's deliberate. It's an image of a dragon that reminds older people of a dragon that was elusive in the past, right? Here's the problem. For $550, that's a lot of dragon. And if that was the price, I would probably be in on this, to be perfectly blunt. The problem is that he has an alternate head and a flame effect that are themselves an add-on at $150 additional, plus another set of wings that are open and expanded, which are them also $150. So before we even get into tax or shipping, we're $850 for this fucking thing. And I think that's a fucking miss. I think it's a big miss. Now, I don't know their costs, but except I do know that Mythic Legions are more expensive figures to begin with. Okay? A Mythic Legions action figure is going to cost you $40 to $60, sometimes $100 depending upon what it is, and upon initial release, and they have a low print run, so if you miss out the secondary market, they blow up, okay? So if you think about the fact these are 6-inch figures versus a 31 by 22 inch dragon, you know, the base price does pan out to me, right? And plus an ultra low run of these things, 2,000. I think it's ridiculous that it's that much money with the other thing. I think for the stretch goals are a bunch of figures, and I think the opposite should be true. I think the stretch goals should be including, you know, the head, the flame effects, and the wings, and then the additional add-ons should be figures. And I think if there's no chance they're going to meet the stretch goal, they said, well, we can do the additional effects and heads and everything, but you'll have to pay for it. I think it's a huge miss, but that's just me. Exactly, Melvor. I'm totally priced out on this. Like, it's not that to be honest, I could afford it, but I'm not paying that price. You know, it's just not worth it to me. It really isn't. And that's a shame, because I would love to have this thing. But it's not, I have no FOMO about it. It's just a shame that this is not going to be available. Now, I realize that there are other dragons that are going to be available in the future. But what they've tried to make clear is that they're reusing as little as possible on each dragon's going to be its own thing. And none of them are going to be on the scale that this particular dragon is. This is the biggest one, apparently. So, which is good, which means there's opportunities to get other dragons down the road at a more reasonable price, and that's fine. It's just one of those things, okay? So, I'm willing to pay $10 to get a $20 figure, or two $20 figures, right? So, I don't mind that markup, but I'm not going to cross the line for this big thing. Even though I bought an Eternia aftermarket, I certainly buy a lot of things aftermarket, and sometimes pay more than most people would, because I want a certain condition, certain assurances on things. But everyone's different. Like, your collection is your collection. You know, I'm not here to dictate what you should or should not be doing when it comes to your stuff. Okay? That's just not what I'm here for. It's not what I'm about. But I like to give my point of view, right? So I want to be very clear about that. You know, a lovely looking dragon, but impractical in both cost and size. I agree. Godatron says, Four Horsemen have a loyal and a following to make this a success. Oh, for sure. There's no question about that. I'm not worried that it's not going to happen by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure it's going to do gangbusters for them, and I hope that it does. I want that to be successful. I want that to be out there. And, you know, there are going to be places like Toy Federation, Eternia Dreams, other stores like that. You know, Dallas Vintage Toys, which will probably, they'll all probably get a couple of them. So they have them on the shelf, and it's easy to get, but it'll be even that much more expensive. You know, and Bjorn had said this in private, but I love you saying it now. For a much cheaper price, I can show up in full dragon costume and terrorize your toys. Unless you already have the costume, I think it'd be a comparable price, but that's okay. I appreciate you. Badger says, it's interesting that the Fire Effect spare head pack has sold more units than the dragon itself. People are looking at customization. Yep, I can see that for sure. Boba Hicks says dragon. Logic Blaster, and I meant to pull up your comment earlier. It's good to see you as well, sir. And I missed an earlier chat too. Logic Blaster says, Jim, do I have any overall opinions on the direction of Motu Toys going forward? I will come back to that. But yes, I do. Let me go here. Who says, I'm not different and I'm wrong. Let's see, now you... Robert Infinite Realm says, the dragon, I was out just because of space long before the price was revealed. I don't like how they did add-ons at 150 each, but I was already out anyway. Yeah, and, you know, with the accessories and stuff selling a lot, that's kind of interesting to me. I really hope that it, you know, if people want it, get it. Cool. I love it. But it's just not for moi. Right. There's no high volume discount for the retailers. They have to pay the same shipping for each dragon and aftermarket price. Yeah, exactly. So the lowest shipping I was going to have would have been $100. So that means that plus tax were over $1,000 per dragon, right? So a bare minimum, they're going to have a 20% markup on these things, which, I mean, you got to make money off the whole situation, right? So that means that you're looking at $1,200 plus per dragon minimum, right? So if you consider that, it's kind of like one has to make the decision, do I want this or not? Now, space is not going to be an issue for me once we move. Shelf space will be an issue just because I don't have all the shelves yet, but we'll make the space. I'm going to be converting this very large garage, so it's not a problem. So I don't think in those terms. There will come a time where space becomes that thing that I think about, because once we're, you know, in the townhouse condo, you know, there's a limit on space, sure, but that will only limit what I can display. And the goal is to display everything I currently have in that space, and then kind of go from there and see what we want to accomplish. But once we're in like the perma home, the 5-ever home as we call it, we're not moving after that. So then it becomes like, hey, what do I actually have space for? Because it isn't just displaying them. It's, hey, I don't just want my G.I. Joe stuff out. I want there to be battle scenes with the vehicles and everything. I don't just want my Star Wars displayed. I want there to be a scene. The same thing with the Motu and everything else. So space becomes a real premium with that stuff. For sure. For sure. But it's, you know, that dragon, it's cool. And the space on it, like, whatever. I'd figure it out, you know. And it was especially tantalizing because Lauren now collects Lord of the Rings figures. So it's like, oh, we could do that with that and this and that. And da, da, da. But I just think it's too expensive. Bottom line. That's it. So but but it will have a perceived prestige of rarity, despite there being a couple thousand out there. With Eternia, it was a minimum of 5,000 backers, so there's maybe like 6 or 7, something like that. There's that. This has only a 2,000 entry point. I think it'll go higher than that over time. We'll see. What's funny to me is that your comment got YouTubed. I don't see anything ready for moderation, and I've got moderators here who should have put it through. Oh, sorry about that, Ian. Huh. Anyway, getting back to here. Badger says, Big Bad's quartered in Minnesota. Maybe they'll drive to New Jersey for fun to save shipping. I, honestly, if they order, if Big Bad does get these, that's interesting. So I would laugh pretty hard if they, let's say they got like 20 of them. That's $2,000 they're saving by making the road trip, and that's a pretty fair return on investment, right? But looking at what they did with the Cat Slayer, that markup's going to be insane. Acronell says, space issues are why I have very few games in box versus having them in books and carrying cases. I get that. And only Evercade carts are in the box still. Fair enough, fair enough. And we have a library wall in our living room, which is going to expand a little bit when we get to the condo because we have more wall space. You know this. I have universal game cases for all my retro stuff, and then anything disc-based I keep in a case. Same with CDs and vinyl and all that. I try to keep stuff as nice as I possibly can. Blu-rays, DVDs, whatever. I will sometimes change packaging for ease of display, but beyond that, it is what it is. So, Logic Blaster wants to know my overall opinions on the direction of Motu toys going forward. Overall opinion, I think it's good. I think the line's very healthy. I think the cartoon collection was a masterstroke, no pun intended. I think it kind of reinvigorated some stagnant collectors. It takes a lot of like, for example, they don't have to make 2 versions of the She-Ra characters that didn't come out. You know what I mean? Because, like, the original She-Ra figures had real hair, were, like, Barbie-esque and so forth, and didn't really match the cartoon. So if they're looking to match the cartoon anyway, and the cartoon collection's already a thing, so from a She-Ra collector perspective, this is hog heaven, because you get an Origin scale figure that looks like the cartoon, but still looks just fine right alongside the other Origin stuff. So I get, kind of the best of all worlds. I think that's perfect. This being the year of She-Ra, there's a ton of She-Ra stuff coming out. So I think that's great. When we look at the Masterverse, with the new Eternia stuff, I think it's really smart because they're giving really cool versions of these characters that also can double as their classic designs. And, I think had they started with that instead of the Revolutions and Revelations stuff, I think they would have sold a lot better. But, they've hit their footing. When it comes to traditional vintage Motu Origin stuff, it's slowing to a trickle because they're trying to keep us on the hook for as long as they possibly can. And I completely understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. Like Gojatron is saying here, there's a lot of Motu collectors are getting impatient, waiting for Origin's versions of the original line. I completely agree. I'm ready for them to just dump a few waves on us and have done with it. Hero is a good example of that. There's some dinosaur-related stuff we gotta get. There's a very short list of regular mainline characters that need to come out, and they just haven't done it. It's really frustrating. And they've For like Too Bad is really a good example, because they told me that they said on Pixel Dan, they looked him in the face at PowerCon and said, "Oh yeah, the regular version of Too Bad is already sculpted." Well, where the fuck is he? You know, where is he? What is taking so long? Um, vehicles, fucking like it's crazy. It should not have taken as long as it did for us to get a Night Stalker. Night Stalker should have been a Mattel Creations exclusive like the month after they did Stridor. It probably would have sold better, right? You know, so there's a ton of stuff they need to get the fuck out the door. I'm tired of waiting. On one hand, and I'm going to get some flack for this, I'm enjoying the slower pace financially and mentally. I don't have to worry about it as much, right? But it's still not a consistent enough pace, right? If they positioned the Club Grayskull thing as like, here's how you get first dibs on the Motu Origins vintage stuff, and we'll do something every other month, or every month, or every 6 weeks or something, I'd pay double the money for that. Just to be able to do that. But that's not what they're doing. So, like, there's no consistency anymore, which is its own stressor, if that makes sense. I like where they're going in terms of what figures are coming out and how the line looks and how it is behaving, but it's not a consistent cadence anymore. That I don't like, for sure. Hello, Adam. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. Thank you. Boba Heck says, but they gave us Toy She-Ra and Hordak earlier on. What about them folks that wanted to collect the rest of the characters in that style? What about them, Jim? Tough. Because if we'd have gotten origin style, like non-cartoon origin style versions of those characters, they would not sell worth a shit. They just wouldn't. And it would be a complete redesign anyway. Right? I think that most people, this is an opinion, and I know that you're just poking the bear. I get it. But I really feel like the cartoon collection is the way to do She-Ra to please everybody as best as you possibly can without you having crazy amounts of product that just doesn't move. Godatron says, I've had cash in hand waiting for 2 years for those dinosaurs. What's wrong with my money, Mattel? I totally get it, dude. Because I'm ready. I'm ready for those too. I'm ready for like the giants. I'm really like the dinosaurs and the giants. I'm really after those. But then you've got like the repaints. Like you got like the robot Modulok. You've got the other rock person. You've got, and I don't remember names off the top of my head. I've been napping through most of the day, and there's no caffeine in my system, so forgive me, but it just feels like, I don't know if they're trying to still gauge interest or what's going on, but I don't know what they're really trying to do except string us along and give us other things we might buy along the way that we maybe wouldn't otherwise pay attention to or buy. So I have a feeling that when the cartoon collection kind of starts to peter out, you'll see the vintage stuff kind of come back into the fray, because the cartoon collection's been hit. You know what I mean? So I can't speak for Mattel. If I could speak for Mattel, I would say, hey, we'll get them all this year, right? Logic Bunch says, space issues become more apparent consideration after receive the HasLab Ghost. It's probably way too huge to display in my space. I still think it's a cool release, but it's space restrictive. Yes. Eternia is definitely in that realm, right? Because at one point I was going to just put it on the floor here. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So I left it in the box, and I had to research specific furniture to make that happen. It's kind of crazy. Zombies in the house. What's up, Jesse? Nice to see you. Delays definitely help someone like himself who only has one income, but majority of fans and collectors all ready to buy everything else, and they shouldn't have to suffer. I think that there's probably a slower but steady pace that would work for most. And for a while there, and you guys can back me up on this, like I would say once Origins hit the mass market, it wasn't just a Walmart thing. So like late 21, all of 22, and certainly a significant portion of 23, they were churning out a fuckload of product. It was very hard to keep up with. It's a thing. Largo's there says, greetings! Greetings to you too, sir. It's very good to see you. Very good to see you. Zombie says, no, I'm not able to be a hardcore collector financially anyways, but most are. I don't know if most people are. I feel bad for y'all who have put down reservations and experience delays. Everything's a thing. You know what I mean? Giraffe says, forget Evil Warriors, Snake Men, and Heroic Warriors. This is the year of the Evil Horde. You'll get Fright Zone, Hurricane Hordak, Multibot, Dragstore, Slime Pit, and I like it. We're almost definitely going to get Fright Zone in the fall. It's probably going to be a fan channel exclusive, and it sounds like the price is not going to be too bad. I was hoping for $80, $90. I've heard tell of it being $50, $60 because it's so small, and to encourage people to buy multiple, which I would at that price. Hurricane Hordak, down. Multibot, I'm down. Dragstore, I'm in. Slime Pit, reveal it. If we get all that this year, I'd be so happy, right? I'd be so happy. Badger says, it's funny. If they shrunk that dragon down to 1 foot long, it'd be the second largest item in my collection. Fair enough. Boba Hicks says, can you not just call up Mr. Mattel on the phone and ask him what the plans are? Mr. Big Shot with your Club Grayskull card? Well, the card hasn't arrived in the mail, and that has the secret hotline on it. So, no, I can't. Ian Sweeney is just focusing on his 118 world building, so my Origins Castle Grayskull is now going to be an underground excavated ruin from a long-dead civilization. I dig it. I dig it. Epic Badges apparently playing Among Us. Very sus. Very sus. Robert's Infinite Realm says, I think I'm mostly done with Motu. Just a couple coming up I want, and that's going to be all for me too, I believe. I was never the biggest fan of Motu, mostly early stuff. And that's fair. And the thing is, when I was a kid, I was a fan of the earlier stuff and some of the later stuff that came out. I am after this for the wow factor. I'll be 100% honest. I've said it before. I really want people to come in to the room and go, wow. You know, and a populated, you know, all these play sets and everything, that's the way to do that. And to be able to get something and say it's more or less complete, you know, that's important to me, you know, because it is something where once I decide I'm done, I'm done. No more Motu Origins. Bam. You know, that'll be it. And I'm sticking around mainly because I'm curious to see when they say that line is over. And I think that it has so much legs. It's going to be a few more years before we get everything. And I think they're doing that just because. I think they're trying to outlive us. I think they're trying to just string it along and get money from everybody until everyone drops dead or something. But that's okay. The Jada Toy Scooby Gang figure's looking good. There's a vibe to them that I can't tell if it looks like the Hanna-Barbera stuff or if it looks like the newer cartoons. And it's that middle ground that kind of fucks me up. And being that the first wave only has one original member of the gang, because we all know if they did the whole gang in a wave, people would buy that, they wouldn't buy anything else. I get that. It's Jada Toys. Everything Jada does looks good, right? But it's not for me. It's not for me. But getting back to the subject at hand, you know, we're talking about rarity. I think it's a perception in some cases. Scarcity versus rarity. You know, rare means you don't see it that often. Scarcity means you really can't get it. You know, there are some things that you see all the time, but it's scarce enough that it's expensive. Like, it's a whole thing, right? So you look at that hero in a long enough timeline, he's going to become He's people say he's rare because you had to have the card to get him and blah blah blah. But if you were here at the time and like this guy was readily available, right? So he's not a rare figure. It's unlikely to become a rare figure in the strictest sense of scarcity. But people will put him on the shelf or on the wall or however you store, and they'll it's a rare figure. You had to have the Club Grayskull membership to get it, and blah 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 blah. And people will hold that Mythic Legion's Dragon up the same way. Why, they only made 2,000 of these. You had to drive to New Jersey to get it. It's rare. They might sell enough that's not really that rare. It's just expensive. That's the thing. It's interesting to me. Manic Plastics in the house. Good to see you, sir. Giraffe says Jada is killing it. Mega Man, Serial Monsters, and Scooby all look fantastic. I'm happy with my Jada horror monsters myself. I love those fucking things to death. All right, so we are at the point where the panel link is live. So for those of you that are paid Patreon members or YouTube members that are putting in the dough, or if you're a paid Twitch subscriber, you should be able to get to a pinned post that has a link. There's a new link. On Patreon, it's pinned, and it's the latest post on YouTube community page. Y'all are welcome to come in, and we'll see what you have to say about this particular subject there. All right, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get my headphones on because I don't like to contribute to echo. That's a thing for me. But Scooby looks cool. I would love to get it, but it's one of those properties where I loved it as a kid, but like when the Scooby-Doo movie came out in the early part of the century, I didn't care to buy it or go see it. It looked stupid, and it wasn't. But I also didn't feel like I didn't take offense that it was bad. You know, Transformers, when the Michael Bay movies came out, that I took offense to. You know? Boba Hicks says, what about the link for Club Grayskull key holders? I have to post that. You're right. You're right, I do. I forgot all about that, actually. So now, that's there. Grayskull key holders, dun dun dun. But Transformers, I was like, G.I. Joe, I was like, So it's kind of weird to me that my level of fandom has kind of been defined by how those properties were treated as I grew up. I think that's funny to me. Giraffe said, I had to get through this Walmart exclusivity. It's modern day walking uphill through 6 feet of snow. You're not wrong. You really are not wrong. That is for sure. We have Mr. Epic Badger as our first guest on the panel here. Let me get this going. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me all right?
Yep. I clicked the first link you sent, and it took me to hey, this is a thing, log in or use your Google account. And then it just took me to a landing page with nothing else. And I was like, where do I go? The one you just sent me just now took me to your panel.
Okay. So the pinned one didn't work. This one did.
The one that was sent on, where did I get that link? The one I got through Gmail, which is probably linked to your Patreon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I will fix that. Sorry, folks. If you are trying to get in and the link's not working, put it in the chat. I will get it to you.
Yeah. It should just bring you right here. Because yeah. The other one's like, hey, join our service. I'm like, all right. Go. Anyway.
Jordan would join but has no headphones. That's fair enough. I'm good. And then Melvor says Bay Transformers is offensive. Bay Transformers isn't Transformers. That's the thing. You know, that's how it is. Yeah. You know, we were watching Return of the King Extended Edition last night, and we were looking at Elrond, and he's like, he had a really good decade of the beginning of the century, didn't he? He's like, yeah, he did, between that and Matrix, and she's like, what else did he do? And I'm like,
Oh,
well, that's a
the
couple
actor.
things. Yeah.
I was like,
And
no, not Elrond. He had a miserable start to the second or the third movie.
yeah, but no, and I said, yeah, he voiced Megatron in the Transformers movie, and then I just went, and it was horrible. I hated it. Like they just, man. Anyway, there's
So,
nothing redeemable about Michael Bay Transformers except for the movie Bumblebee. That's just all there is to it.
so we're talking about rares, and I figured I'd give my
Yes.
2 cents since I collect a
Yes.
line that does it intentionally. So for those who know me, I like my micro stuff. I collect Galoob stuff, Action Fleet, Micro Machines. Jazzware does a modern line for, where's my head? The Micro Galaxy Squadron for Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And for every wave of Starfighter or light class vehicle, usually there's about 5 vehicles per wave.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is always going to be a rare, 1 of 15.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses. Anyway.
15,000.
And then a chase, which is 1 of 5,000.
Gotcha.
And so that right there can be frustrating for people who want to collect these for a couple of reasons. One, Jazzware started with really horrible distribution. Not them, but like Walmart and Target. You couldn't find the first few waves of these hardly on shelves. So finding even
I
these
remember it was kind of
difficult.
a struggle. Like they were just not getting out on the shelves, it looked like.
And then people, of course, anytime there's a community where, people want something, FOMO kicks in, and of course people will start scalping. And, these will immediately pop up on eBay. The first ones that come out, people will grab them and throw them on eBay for like $100, $70.
Sure.
It's like, don't pay that price for $14 plastic things.
No.
It was also frustrating because in the first few waves, the ships were like ships that weren't repaints. Like these are both X-Wings. But in the first few waves, it was like, that TIE fighter from Mandalorian where the wings folded like that, or General Grievous, his little Cadillac starfighter that Obi-Wan stole after shot him in his chest. Those were new molds that weren't going to get reused anytime soon. So if you wanted that ship, you'd have to find one of these. So Jazzware fixed it in a few ways. One is for rares and chases, they're using molds of ships that have already been repainted. So like the A-Wing has come out a few times, or X-Wings. And then also recently Jazzware has started a process where they take the first 1,500 of each ship and set it aside. And then the rest go to retailers. So for a few months, if you want these ships, you can go to the store and try to find them. And then after a few months go by, Jazzware will put up this inclusive pack with all 5 ships from that wave, including the rares and chases, and they'll put them on their Vault exclusive website, which you don't pay to get into. You just sign up with a free account, and then you can just buy all the ships in one go. If you're not worried about, if FOMO doesn't affect you, and you're willing to just wait a couple months while everyone else is showing off their fancy stuff, that's what I did with this wave. I didn't buy any. They came out on Jazzware's Vault a few months later, and I just bought the whole thing and didn't stress over it. And I
think that's smart. I think more toy companies should do that. I'm gonna bring up Tree's comment here, and then I'll get into something that I think will be interesting. Tree says premium quality materials, small quantities, and difficult/impossible to copy seem to be the factors that make toys rare, in his opinion. Well, I think that's all true, but when we look at like vintage toys, there's stuff that went out to wide release, but nobody bought, and then they just trashed the back stock, or they got lost, or whatever. So like that's a version of rare. I think Badger has a good point here with regard to modern stuff being rare because of exclusivity or just distribution woes. Like it's all over the shop. And I think it's a lot that comes down to perception, where you are, where like where your collection bias is and shit like that. Playmates, one of the most prolific toy makers of the last 30 years, easily. And they make tons of stuff. And they also make tons of the same things. So in theory, for example, the original version of the Turtles and a lot of those characters have been made over and over and over. And yet, some of them are very hard to come by complete for whatever reason and command kind of crazy prices sometimes. You've been one of my saving graces when it comes to the Turtles line because I can't get them anywhere. And, most recently, there's this 4-pack that has the Rat King in it and a couple others. And on Amazon, they're like, we're not going to get them because they didn't fulfill it or whatever. And I got really pissed off. And then then Goji's like, Psst, that's up on Big Bed right now. I'm like, really? Shit. Fine. But I have no guarantee that's going to come through either. Rolando Flores, one of friend of the channel, just before I still went live, he showed off like a Walmart near his house, and the only classic turtle thing they had on the shelf was a Baxter Stockman that looked real crispy. And I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen a picture of that toy in the wild. Like, maybe once you found one, maybe. I don't know. But it was just like, what? How is it that like,
well,
a company this big?
I found one because it's in that box sitting in your room.
You're fucking kidding.
Baxter and Wingnut. They're opened. Like, I've opened them and pulled them out, but like I've slot everything in because I do that C cut.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in the box.
See, this is why I should open things when people send them to me. Yeah. But and I appreciate that. Thank you, by the way, and also spoiler alert. But thank you. Fuck, that's crazy. It's just these things happen, right?
Hey, this thing I never seen. It's only in my room.
Right, it's right there. It's like right there. That's funny to me. But they have a good distribution system. They can get into Walmarts, they can get into Targets, they can anywhere. But somehow there's a failure along the way of a wide release, right? Like, for whatever reason, Big Bad just doesn't get the individual figures or like the 4-packs, or maybe they're not interested, but they list some stuff, not all. Amazon, it's screwy as to which ones they're going to get and not. But yet, they had the Party Wagon was readily available for a long time. The Blimp was available for a long time. Technodrome was a little bit sketchy, but once it was out, you could get it pretty easy. And the same is going to happen with the Sewer Lair, I'm sure, which is confirmed to be an Amazon exclusive. Why they would make these so hard to get is beyond me. I don't understand. At this stage of the game, when, collection of toys is probably at the highest it's gonna be, why would you make one of the most classic toy lines that much harder to... I don't get it. The only instance of this with Playmates where I've gone, oh, well, that was good. They announced the reimagined Super Posy Turtles last year, put it out at a sub $15 price point, and it just goes up for sale, and you can just get them on the site, no problem. I was like, what? Like, this never happens with Playmate shit. It never happens. I don't understand. Do you have any perspective on that?
No, I mean, I brought a few props with me because I didn't know what kind of when we were talking about rarity, like what type of rarity you were going to bring up.
Sure.
But I brought a few props just to kind of talk about a few different rarities. One is rarity through just not a lot of them being produced.
Right, which is what Gojitron's talking about here with the yak face. He says the retro yak face from last year's already selling for 150 was manufactured scarcity.
But that's different than like this is manufactured rarity.
Sure.
But like another example, like these are old 90s Action Fleet. You'll notice, if I can get it there, one has a higher canopy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Wave 1, or the first batch, and then they changed it for the rest of them to be that skinnier canopy. And these are easier to find. This is not intentional the way that those are done. It's more of like, hey, we had to make a running change to a line.
Right.
But what's nice is
like variants. I mean, that's, like example of another thing that's in that box is a Kenner Batcave. And there's been, 6 or 7 different versions of that?
Yeah.
And then slight variations in those as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's probably 1 or 2 that are more rare than another. Like I would imagine that the probably most rare one, probably Batman Forever version, maybe the animated series version, because the first time it came out, it sold like gangbusters. And then I think the later versions, because it was just the same thing with different stickers, that probably you have this exact thing, but the stickers are different,
Yeah, because my parents were getting me the Kenner or the Batman Returns toys because I got the little Penguin Commandos. So the toy you have is from that era. And then, the animated came out later. And I'm sure those sold plenty as well. But anything after that was probably just fewer and fewer and fewer people were buying it. I like to say hi to PGM Show is on here.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say hi. How you doing?
Yeah.
To our resident New Zealander.
Says that the squadrons are very cool. Yeah. And yes, when we were watching Return of the King Extended Edition last night, yes, we paused and gazed upon, and we cheers and took a drink, the whole thing. We didn't skip it.
Did you? Were you there at the end of our part of the stream with Stu?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when he asked us all to do Golem.
Oh no! I was not there because I was out because of the thing. I didn't hear that. So
yeah, Stu asked all of us to do a Golem impression, and apparently I knocked it out of the park.
I can do a pretty good Golem, and I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm sure yours is great, though. I'm just kidding. Ian Sweet says, I don't get why a Retro Collection Stormtrooper is not released at every wave of the Retro Collection. I agree. TVC is doing a slightly better job of that, but not by much. I think they do every other wave they do it. It's kind of weird. And let's see. Ian Sweet says, the price of the Return of the Jedi 6-pack with Yak and Mon Mothma is now £300 on eBay, which is crazy. Oh, man. And Melvar's looking forward to the new McFarlane Turtles line. So I do have I have something to restate. This is something I talked about during our slot on the charity stream, where there was an interview with Todd McFarlane regarding, and they just went for the hey, what's going on with DC and everything. And he said, well, we're going to produce until we can't. And in the meantime, there's other things that are still in negotiation that haven't been set in stone that we're going to try and keep some things going. And I the only place where that makes sense to me is maybe Page Punchers and Superpowers. And I think that if I'm going to swing for the fences, if I'm Todd McFarlane, I'm going to keep Superpowers because that's a moneymaker. Whereas Page Punchers, I don't know anyone that buys those.
I'm going to buy one. Apparently, I don't know, but that Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, some people have told me it's good. So I might, since that one comes with a figure, I might buy that one. But that would be my only one.
I think I said when they first came out, I was like, I might buy some of those if the comics that come with them are good. Like, I want a copy of that comic book, and that's a cheap way to get, like, a copy of the comic, but so far, eh.
So with Mattel, because when I think Mattel,
Yeah.
When I think of modern Hasbro, I think of like the 112 stuff in the vintage collection,
Yeah.
the 118. When I think Mattel, their big bread and butter has been like keeping with the traditional Origins stuff. Like,
Well,
do you? I would think Mattel would want to fight for the superpower scale because Mattel seems to like doing the older, like redoing older stuff. I don't know if they'd like doing 112 scale action figures the
well,
way Hasbro
here's the
does.
thing. Well, here's the thing. They have an entire line of WWE figures with 3 different levels. They have
Oh,
basic, elite, and ultimate, and they're all 112. They all scale together, and they have varying degrees of accessories and all this stuff. And I think that's the model they'll adapt with DC,
I
because when
didn't
they
know
had
those
the
were
license,
Mattel.
yeah, and when they did the license before, Wonder Woman over here,
Yeah.
they did nothing but 112 for the most part. Maybe some kids stuff too, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that although they paid homage to the Superpowers brand with those reissues that Bill was like, those were just a rebrand. Yeah, but the figures were dead to rights even before they actually put the Superpowers name on it. So they clearly had reverence for that, and if they continued that, I think it'd be a slam dunk. And maybe it would be something where they get to do the 112 scale stuff and have branded superpowers, but Todd gets to keep doing his 4-inch stuff and superpowers. Because it's something that Mattel gets public goodwill by letting McFarlane do that, and Warner Brothers gets public goodwill by letting him continue, and they don't have to put any money out of pocket to create, because if they just cut this damn thing off, I think there's gonna be a perceived, oh, they're the villain, they took it away from Todd and this and that. Because there are some Todd McFarlane fans that are like really pissed about this. And I'm like, I understand, but also it's like, this is what happens when you put out 30 some odd Batmans. And I'm not exaggerating with that. It's like, that's what happens. Mattel is a bit more, at least with what they had done with DC in the past, using that as evidence, they were a bit more reasonable. But they also did like the whole Matty Collector mail-in bullshit. So it's a question of what they're doing. And Goji, I think, is right there. He said, I see them going a Masterverse route with DC. That's what I think, too. I hope it's 6-inch and not 7. But if they are 7-inch, a lot of McFarlane people will be happy.
That was
It's
something
just
I
a
was going to
question.
bring up. So Masterverse is 7.
Yeah.
If I were, and maybe, I don't know, you may disagree with me, McFarlane stuff is 7-inch. If I were Mattel, I would be worried about doing 7-inch DC because I don't want people to pick and choose and be like, well, my McFarlane Batman's is really good.
Right.
So I'm going to
Right.
skip the Mattel one and just get the Wonder Woman or this one. I would go 6-inch to make people start from the beginning and
Me too.
not do the 7.
Yeah. And I think that's their missing piece, right? Because if they picked up the Superpowers 4-inch line and they started over, unless they were insanely good and just did, because that's the thing. If they said, we'll do Superpowers, we're going to start from scratch, we're going to redo all the old figures first, which is most of the stuff that he hadn't done. I think if they did that, that would print money, right? But if they're not willing to do that, the 6-inch is the way to go because, like you said, one, it'll scale with everything they made before, so they can reuse molds they probably still have. And also, you have that force them to start from the beginning, which, because I've been a very heavy cherry picker when it comes to the McFarlane stuff, I don't mind starting from scratch. I welcome the opportunity, in fact, because looking at the old Mattel stuff and looking at how good they are with the WWE stuff and what they've done with Motu, certainly to a lesser degree like Barbie and some other stuff, it's like I trust them to make a really good toy. But the question becomes, in the context of this conversation, what's their distribution and availability going to be like? Are they going to follow old models? Are they going to go exclusive with certain things? Are they going to make it a mail-in BS again? Who knows? I don't think they're that dumb, but you never know. You just never know.
See, just with general populations today, I could see them putting out like your standard Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman based on something newer, and then restricting the Linda. Is it Linda Carter? Yeah, no.
Linda Carter for Wonder Woman, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. There's other Carters in the Marvel universe, and they keep getting the names all blurred. But yes, I could see Mattel doing like a Linda Carter and a Batman 66 through their website, because there's going to be a smaller group of people wanting it who are typically older people who are like, oh, I got to have that one. Whereas my little sister would not know who that is or why she would want it.
Right. And I think that if they did a Batman 66 of anything, I'd be surprised. Because Todd did pretty much almost everything in that 6-inch. And it was 6-inch. He didn't do 7 for that. It was 6-inch, which was confusing. It's like, well...
But those were the 5P or the... No? Were they?
Yeah, I have a couple of them right here. I honestly don't know. Give me a second. Look. I'll be right back.
I thought the Batman 66 stuff was like the 5POA or something.
Something like that, but...
So not super articulated.
But we'll see.
I'd like to take this moment to give a shout out. So currently Boba Hicks is watching us on his big TV in his living room. So hello to his army of cats.
Yes. So these... Okay, so this is a Batman 66...
Yeah.
Boxing Riddler. He's got bends at the elbow and the shoulder. He's got wingspan. Yeah, this is pretty standard stuff.
The legs look like they only go forward back, right?
Nope. You've got the... Oh, you mean the actual at the hip?
Oh, yeah. I see. And the knees have articulation too.
And there's ankle rocker too, it looks like.
Yeah. The hip stuff is kind of important if you want good articulation out of it.
It's Riddler in boxing shorts. I mean, do you care?
If you do photography.
No, that's fair. For those wondering, those were a gift. So I don't dare get rid of them because they were a gift, but not for me. Godatron, speaking for most of us, is could someone just do the damn Legion of Doom with the big giant head playset? It's been 47 years and I'm still waiting. I agree. And yes, Godatron is correct. Mattel did do a 112 Linda Carter just before they lost the license. And she's expensive. She commands about 120 to 150 bucks.
Yeah, but she's kind of worth it.
She kind of is. So that's why I'm like, where are they going with this?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping there will be like this like short space of time where the value goes down on that. Like, give me that. Because I want to have my Christopher Reeve Superman, Michael Keaton Batman, and Linda Carter right there. And then maybe have my Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man just going, what's up?
And maybe an Ace. The Bat Hound? Or not, no wait. Ace the Bat Hound for Batman and what's the dog's name? Crypto,
yeah. I don't care about those. Like I just don't. I never saw the point of Crypto and I never saw the point of Ace in general. So
I mean, you know me with my classified. I have probably as many dogs as I have like actual figures.
I get it. I ordered the fucking polar bear too. I did. I kind of like identify as a polar bear a little bit because I lay around and drink a lot.
Yeah, and the Timbers are wolves. Like when Order comes out, the German Shepherd, I'm getting one, but if I see one on clearance, I'm getting a second. I have to have more dogs.
Oh, for sure. Like that's a good dog to have for anything. Ian Sweeney really wants a Linda Carter Wonder Woman figure. I think we all do. I think that there need to be more of those in the pantheon that don't cost 120. Tree Theodore asking the panel, which McFarlane Batman 66 figure do I predict to be rare? I have no idea. For example, that Riddler could be in the future, could be that because no one bought him. That's why he was a gift. It was a giveaway. It was like, I don't want this. I'm going to give this to my friend. That's how that happened. They were honest about it. They didn't want it. So it could be that, because again, whether we're talking about now or 30 years from now, because that's one of the other things, and that should be a whole other topic. But like 30 years from now, is any of this stuff going to be worth anything to anybody? And I think the answer is going to be yes and no. You know, imagine growing up in a household where your dad or your mom and your dad do this shit, right? And depending upon their demeanor when they come into this room, you might hate toys. You might really hate toys. But then, like Pixel Dan's kids who have been part of the toy hunting experience, you know, they know they're like, these are dad's toys, but dad shares these toys and blah, blah, blah. They are probably going to be really into it. Granted, by virtue of who their dad is, their toys aren't going to go missing. Ever. They're still going to have access to them forever. So I think, you know, socially, societally speaking, I don't think the toy market's going to be the same down the road. I still think it's going to be the same kind of a thing. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen. So as far as like Batman 66, honestly, probably an Adam West Batman with no special shit on him. I'll bet you those are going to be the most sought after and perceived to be rare. Because if you want one, they're kind of hard to get now. Just like a regular He-Man is now. Even now. 4 years into the line. 5 years into the line. Do you have any insight on that?
I don't collect the line. I don't know.
Neither do I.
It would be like... I'm sure they produce enough of them that there's going to be tons of them floating around. A lot of the rarity for vintage stuff was a lot of it just got tossed because that was an era in which parents, when you grow to a certain age, your stuff just gets tossed.
Just goes away.
It's gone. Today, people are much more willing to like put stuff in bins and put them in the closet. So it's like, I think our current stuff is still going to have some value, but it's not going to like, it's going to be there longer than the vintage stuff from the 80s and 90s.
Oh, sure.
Because all my stuff disappeared once I was like fully into computer games and, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, same. And I hated that. But I held on to my Turtles stuff. I was like, I paid for most of these my own money. You're not touching it. And then I sold it by choice for drum stuff, which I don't regret, but I also kind of regret. Ian Sweeney saying he wants a John Wesley Shipp Flash figure from the CBS television show. I'd be over the moon if they made that. Oh, that's my Flash. That's my Barry Allen. Gojatron says the purple suit Yvonne Craig Batgear looks to be the most expensive 66 figure on the secondary market, around $90, which is still pretty reasonable, frankly. And that's the thing about that line. They were everywhere. Like when they were like the current wave, like they weren't that hard to find. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty robust line, and I think it did a good job. However, I don't understand. I didn't understand that Batman 66 was still that popular. Like I was like, what? Really?
I have fun with it.
But that's a taste thing.
Yeah.
It's a taste thing. PGM says, "Oh, it's just a joke. It didn't work. They don't have one."
I think
well, maybe
had a
they
comment
will.
Earlier about the armadillo.
Yeah. I mean, they could. Like,
it's small enough.
Yeah. In a world where they have the damn wild boar from a relatively obscure Dreadnought character, and they go to the trouble of making a frickin', boar, I think that anything's possible.
The armadillo is just a box with a gun on it. Like, it would be fairly easy. I imagine they'll do that in the Polar Battle Bear soonish.
Polar Battle Bear.
That's my baby.
Yeah. Me too. Dragonfly was always my favorite, but what I played with the most was probably the Battle Bear, by far. That was something that was really special to me. And like the top would always split off, and I would always fly off. Like, and I'd go back and put it back on. But it was, I love that toy so much. There's something about the snow toys. The Snow Speeder I was a big fan of, and the Polar Battle Bear. Ugh, man, made me salivating for stuff I don't have. Joe Becky says there'll always be collectors, but I feel modern day audiences do not have that need to own a piece of something. Collector space will shrink in the future. I agree absolutely. And my question, and again, we should probably do a whole show on this at some point, but what would that look like? I think what's going to happen, to a lesser degree, but it'll be interesting. So you think about like the early 2000s all the way up to like maybe 2010. Toy collecting was like this underground thing, and you could get stuff for pennies on the dollar, and it was everywhere, and no one seemed to want it. And then like the toy companies were still putting out stuff, and they were making enough to keep putting it out, but it wasn't like this mass market thing that people were really buying a lot of. Given that people don't have that need to have physical things, I think it'll artificially replicate that early 2000s vibe when my generation starts to stop collecting and or just physically die out. Not to be morbid, right? And then the market will flood with a lot of stuff that was perhaps rare. Like my prized Eternia, like I know Lauren's probably going to hang on to that for a while, but eventually it's going to go somewhere else. And again, that's hopefully 40 plus years in the future, right? So at that point, you'll see the market flood with a lot of stuff that was hard to come by before, and at prices that are lower, and the people that do want them will snatch them up. And I think you'll see like this weird artificial reboot of things, kind of like not dissimilar to the way the Matrix was advertised in the movie itself, where it says this happens every century. We just do this over and over again. And I do think that it's something like that is going to happen. It all really comes down to what that next two generations are going to do, what they're going to be into. Because maybe they won't even know what a He-Man is, or what have you. It comes down to a lot of shit. But I will tell you this right now, and you guys are going to hate me for saying this. I'm telling you, in that situation 30, 40 years from now, the movie-based superhero action figures, those are going to be rare. Those are going to be the expensive ones. Yes, even the Eternals, okay? Even them. Just because that's the medium that is most accessible to the people at that time. But that's okay. Thoughts, sir?
The Eternals are going to be the ET of their time, when there's going to be this rumor that there's a giant hole in the ground filled with millions of Eternal figures in box out in the New Mexico desert.
I won't put anything past it.
It's so hard to predict, though, because like things move so quickly today. And I know maybe it's just me growing up and being older saying that kind of stuff, but it's just like, when I was at home for Christmas with my nephew, he's 6. He just turned 6. Super addicted to a Switch. Fortunately, he prefers cartridges. He doesn't like downloading things. He likes to have the cartridge and putting it in and playing the game. Right. But I took him to a zoo, and halfway through the time at the zoo, he started to get, he's young, he's cranky, but he really wanted to sit down with his Switch. And it's like, he's grown a preference where he wants that kind of thing. And I'm sure when he's 20, 30 years old, he's going to be looking for a Switch and those physical cartridges.
And they're going to be rare because they sell well enough, but the emphasis just isn't there.
Yeah.
And I think that going back to what Jonathan Redmond's saying, modern kids have grown up on video games and phone apps. Yes. And I feel like an example, I have a launch PlayStation 4. So right off the bat, this goes the first off the line, boom. But it also has a copy of the playable teaser on it. which is that Silent Hill demo of the thing or whatever.
PT.
Those PT means playable teaser, and
Oh,
what it
that's
was
yeah,
like
yeah.
it was a not quite a demo. It was basically a trailer, a playable trailer for a Silent Hill game that never got made,
Mm-hmm.
and they pulled it off the digital store. You can't re-download it. So if you have a copy of that on a PlayStation 4, that PS4 goes up in value by another $200-300 because people want to play that so bad. Those kind of, I think that's where collecting is going to get a little bit weird, to where you could sell an old PC that has copies of games that are delisted off of Steam or something like that. I think there's going to be a certain amount of that, and Gotatron predicts a dystopian future with Eternals and Acolyte toys in high demand. I mean, that's how it goes, man. It goes nuts,
Well, in our sphere, we're looking at a future where there really is going to be shortages of physical stuff. Like most of my friends are like me, where most of my games are on Steam, and it's when I pass away, like that can't be inherited.
Nope, and that's right in the terms and conditions.
Yep, and it just goes away, and no one can. No one can put it up at an estate sale and be like, "This guy's game collection." It's like I have to choose to go out and buy physical stuff, hoard it, until I'm old and dead, and then that can go out to other people, for searches. But
for sure,
more and more stuff is being digitalized to where it's gone after you go away, and there's nothing for anyone else to grab.
Because companies are after low risk, high reward products, and that digital is always that. They never have to print a fucking thing if they sell it digitally. And while that's all well and good from a cultural preservation perspective, right? A couple well placed EMPs could erase decades of art, film, and television shows, like it's literally art. Like if DeviantArt servers got taken down, oh my god,
the furry community would lose their mind.
Yeah, and all those, I can't even say it out loud because YouTube will demonetize me. But the kind, all the girls that have that thing, All I'll say is this, and I don't mean to be political, but just to illustrate the art style I'm talking about. It is said that there's a large part of the population that does not like transgender people.
Oh, I see.
DeviantArt begs to differ. DeviantArt begs to differ.
DeviantArt begs for everything. It's
crazy. It's nuts. Shabby Geeks announces, "Good evening. Good evening to you as well, sir. It's good to see you.
Hello.
Good to see you." We've been talking about perceived rarity versus scarcity and how, just in essence, it means something different to everybody and in every different context. And yeah, EMP attacks are inevitable just in the simple sense of like a meteor's going to hit eventually, and that has the same kind of effect.
And what's really funny is when the EMP wipes out all of our digital stuff, there's going to be this floppy disk that has all the answers to all of restoring all that, and it's sitting in a bag in your apartment that belongs to Melvor. He has the key to solving our future.
Yeah, why do you think he hasn't come to get it? The secrets. I'm sorry, I have to tell everybody the truth. I've been charged with safeguarding that floppy disk. Jonathan says, "I think it's more of a case you never really own a digital item that be taken away at the whim from a license holder." Yeah. To a certain degree, that's true. Particularly when it comes to digital games on console marketplaces and digital movies, especially, right? I have a lot of digital movies because I have a lot of hard copy stuff. There are certain things that I get digitally because I have it on DVD or whatever, and I can get the 4K for like $3 or something. Like, sure. But if the internet goes out, which it occasionally does, I just go up to the shelf and go, "What do I watch?" I usually reach out for like the In Search of Darkness or the Creator VC stuff because it's like 6 hours long. Just put that in, because I can. Physical goods in general are not the way they were when we grew up. I don't care what it is. Well, if we're talking about furniture, physical media, toys, electronics, nothing is built to last anymore. Nothing is. And because of that, then having digital being an option to bring in something that you don't even have to worry about a build quality. It's just ease of delivery, right? They're using the same delivery system to the theaters as they do, the consumer within, within realms and stuff. Because you could literally go to a theater, pay the same amount of money you would for a regular movie, and they're just going to stream the movie to you.
Yeah.
And I was never more aware of that than when I saw Transformers the movie in a theater here in Dallas, Texas. And it was the fall of 21. And I was like, wow, I can't wait to hear this through the big theater speakers. It was a stereo mix, and it was crap. They hadn't calibrated the speakers worth of shit. I was like, dude, I could, ugh. So one of the first things I did when we moved in here is I popped in the 4K of Transformers the movie, and I cranked the sound system just as revenge. We're talking about possibly upgrading our surround system at some point after we move. That is becoming hard to do. Not because it's physically hard to do. It's just there's less of them made. They don't do it that way anymore. It's crazy. Like, they're making everything harder to buy.
When I think about my little sister, because I grew up, I was really in a generational shift where I still had, I had VHS tapes. I had very early, I had tapes, and then DVDs were most of my life growing up. But I'm used to having things, and therefore I've gone back to physical media because I got tired of all the streaming stuff, things getting locked behind fake vaults and stuff like that, and prices. And I was just I just want the physical media again, so I don't have to think about all that. But my little sister doesn't have those attachment to the things. She doesn't have I have a tower for my PC that I built, and my sister is totally fine with her phone. And she doesn't feel like these needs for physical things because that's not what she grew up with. And right. She doesn't keep a lot of things. And it's experiences I think she prefers over physical items.
And I do advocate the fuck out of that, because I do feel that, life is what it is, and if you don't experience it, you're missing out. I am a person that experienced a ton of different things in my young life. Basically by the time I turned 40, I'd lived about 2 or 3 lifetimes. And that's not a humble brag or anything. I got lucky. I definitely won the lottery of life when it came to that. I got just a bunch of cool stuff, and I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't need more of that per se. The only thing that drives me in that direction now is having a new family. Well, new, several years in, but, Lauren and I want to do things together. We want to have those experiences together. But even then, the drive is lower, right? But I love that there are generations of people that's what they're involved with. But again, it's that there's certainly people within Gen X and millennials that were not, while they like doing that, they also like the physical things. So it was a rarity, and then basically it's just so crazy if you think about it. 2020, when people were forced to stay home, they couldn't just have the experiences. Then they started craving those physical things again. So I'm not wishing another pandemic or perceived pandemic or whatever you want to call it on anybody. Not because I don't think that any industry should need that to be able to punk up. But like Jonathan was talking about Bluey earlier. They have this one show that's like the big thing versus the bajillion different things that we had growing up. But how much do you want to bet in like 30 years, 20, 30 years, someone's going to make a killing with Bluey toys. You know, I bet that that's one of those things that will happen. Um, but then again, you know, I did not want this to turn into the future prediction show, but here we are. Virtual reality being what it is the most accessible it's ever been. It's not going anywhere. Like when it became a mainstream consumer product back in 2016, like when it really started to blow up, people were like, this is a fad, it's not going to last. Bullshit. It's still around 10 years later, and it's more accessible than ever. The experiences are getting even cooler. And what I think will eventually happen is where you'll have that augmented reality mixed with virtual reality, and you'll just have the controllers, and you'll be in a room, and you'll have projectors and stuff. And I think when that becomes a thing, and it's a viable technology that's easy to access, and like you'll see movies made that way, where you can just experience being in the room when these things happen. And then you could play like a gamified portion of it where you get to drive the vehicle and drive off the cliff and all this stuff, right? I think when we get to that place where you can just change reality at a moment's notice, and it's just, that's the way you play video games, watch movies, everything else, I think that's going to be the death of physical items. Not necessarily physical media, but physical items. Like, I don't need to get a Millennium Falcon toy when I can just be in the Millennium Falcon anytime I want. You know what I mean? And I don't think that technology is that far-fetched, that far off. I think within 15, 20 years, if they just... There's a few things I got to figure out. Because think about it. You got short-throw projectors. So that technology is going to be mainline consumer-grade very quickly. Because it's already out there. It's just very expensive. You've got... the VR stuff being very good.
Giraffe. Sorry, he brought up a very old reference that I love.
Go ahead.
He just mentioned Bubble Bobble, and I was like, I love that game.
That's a great game. Like, I would love that. You know, like Bubble Bobble is one of the most undersung games out there.
If I could play that in VR and just be like blowing bubbles and jumping on them, and then suddenly a giant whale chases me for the rest of the time, that'd be great.
That would be fun.
Sorry, I just saw that reference and just lost it.
No, it's good. Joe Becky abandoned physical media for about a year, then realized he regretted it. Back to buying old albums and CDs wherever I can. Yeah, I've never... The only CDs I've ever gotten rid of were ones that I didn't like. It's the only ones I ever got rid of. And he says, I'll do any format except for 8-track and beta. He'll do Super 8. Will. Film preservation is important too.
I do wonder, going back to the discussion about VR and things. Mm-hmm. So Colorado right now has been for like 20 years blowing up, but it's getting more so today. Like, we've had record years of migration. People are selling expensive properties in Texas and Florida, California, other states, because they're tired of the weather events. They're tired of the heat. They're tired of overcrowding. So they're all coming out to the Rockies with all their cash. There's buying homes for cash, living out here. And everyone out here is a fitness freak. Yep. And we're seeing in the U.S. for the first time, the percentage of obesity has started to drop. Just a little, but it has started to drop. People are getting healthier. If I can't, like, everyone out here has to be outside. It's that kind of extreme, and you'll see it in Oregon too. Just like everyone has to be outside.
Oh yeah. So I noticed it because I noticed it in Oregon the couple times I was there.
Yeah.
And then I've definitely noticed it in Colorado in the research of possibly moving out there.
Yeah.
And to be honest, some of that spread out nature was part of what turned me off a little bit.
I don't see the VR stuff taking flight here, at least for the next decade or two, unless the culture changes. Because the culture in the U.S. right now is reversing to, like,
go outside.
More people are going outside, experiencing things. It's almost looked down upon if you sit inside for too long.
Right.
But and 30 years from now, who knows?
Right. And I think Joe DeBecky brings up a good point. Outside of digital content, you can watch WrestleMania anytime he wants. And it's not just about WrestleMania, but WWE is a very good model of preservation, When they went to the WWE network, they said, okay, they digitized everything they had ever done. Everything. And made it available for just that $10 price point, which was cool. And then when they abandoned that platform, they took it over the Peacock, and then some of it's on Netflix now. And then their YouTube has exploded with content since that switchover. And they're kind of embracing that in a big, bad way. I think if there was less of that Disney Diamond Collection mentality with digital stuff, I think that we'd be in a lot better space. You know, a lot of people poo-poo on like the studio-specific streaming platforms, Max versus Paramount versus whatever. I don't like having to pay for multiple things, but I will tell you this: if they followed that model more closely, I'd be a lot less critical of it. For example, I randomly came across this show on YouTube I'd never heard of. It's called The Green Room with Paul Provenza. It was on Showtime in the earlier part of the century, and it was just a round table of comics drinking and talking shit.
Okay. Yeah.
And the audience often had comedians in it and stuff. And it was just this crazy little talk show format that I'd never heard of. And I was like, this is cool. But everything on YouTube was like grainy. It was like off of a VHS or like a digital whatever. And then I realized, oh, this is Showtime. Oh, that's right. I get Paramount Plus for free from Walmart. And I spend an extra $5 a month to upgrade it to ad-free. And I also get all the Showtime stuff. So I'm paying $5 out of pocket. I use the Walmart thing because I actually use the Walmart shit all the time. Totally worth it. Between those two services, I get my money's worth and then some. And I was like, I wonder if that show is archived on Paramount Plus. It is. In high def. Every episode. And because I pay the extra $5, I get it ad-free. So it's like, I don't mind streaming if I can get access to everything. So if anything, I do feel like when it comes to the big studios, that's how you preserve, that's the future of film preservation. Put everything up on your platform that you own. Max does a pretty good job of it, but their search engine is crap. Paramount Plus does a pretty good job of that, but like discovery of new things is crap. So yeah, it's all there though. If you know what to search for, you can find it, right? And I feel like if they just pared that stuff down and did it that way and kind of took a page out of WWE's book and trying to preserve everything, maybe I'd be less, I don't know, iffy about digital stuff in general. My personally owned, licensed, leased digital stuff, sure. Yeah, I worry about that all the time. Disney Plus, Disney is doing a pretty good job too, actually, with Disney Plus as far as archiving things and whatnot. But this idea that there's stuff that will never become physical, that's a problem. You know, I like having the access. I don't mind paying the price as long as nothing ever goes away. But they were mentioning before, with the digital stuff, they can change things. That's a problem. I remember the whole big uproar about Blazing Saddles amidst a lot of the protests of Black Lives Matter and so forth. And it amounted to just a disclaimer, and I think that was smart. I mean, of course you want to be sensitive to people and what they're going to want, if they don't know what they're getting into, right? I understand that, right? But removing certain things from like Back to the Future, what Netflix did, or, you know, like that part of it, I think that's a whole other conversation. But when I say preservation, I mean in its original form. Which brings me to Star Wars. No, but it's interesting. But when we talk about toys, we talk about physical media, like for example, behind the scenes stuff, special features on DVDs and Blu-rays that we'll never get back. Some of that stuff is preserved, some of it isn't. And I figured you've got to be all in or not. And if you're not willing to go all in, preserve everything and leave it unaltered, put all the disclaimers you want on there, right? You can filter it with a parental filter that says, I don't want anything that has the N word in it or whatever. I get that. But to try and change perception of what was, that bothers me. Right? And that's rare. The courage to keep things as they were, that's rare. Right? I wonder though, as we earlier in the discussion, we talked about that whole thing of like, we're going to die off someday, and there's going to be people that probably will buy the stuff out of, not because it was their memory growing up necessarily, but it was a memory of someone they loved, right? So like, I have a prediction that I've never shared. I'm going to do it now. My brother-in-law is very young. He's pre-middle school age. That's all I'll say. He does collect toys. He's got some he's not a big collector, but he has a lot of different toys. And he's got some cool toys. Stuff that I'm like, when you decide you don't want this, you give it to me. Like he has this really cool Mario Kart Hot Wheels set. It is so cool. And I don't mind saying that at 1 o'clock in the morning, when all you've got are like phones for YouTube in the room you're staying in, because they took the TV out of his room because he wasn't really using it. We were a few beers in, and we're just throwing cars down this, and it was great. And I keep looking at it, waiting for it to go on clearance. It's a Target exclusive. It's around 150 new. It's gone down to 120. I'm like, come on, just get it under $100, and I'm buying it. I'm buying it, son of it. But like, there's certain things that he liked, and I think that there will be some things he probably would want to get back. But not to get morbid, but I have a prediction that in his case, because he really, when he walked in this room, he was just like, he didn't know where to look. He was overwhelmed. He was like, this is so cool. It's like, I don't even know what to do with this. Like he was overwhelmed to the point he shut down for about 5 minutes. He's like, error. You know, he kind of had to reboot him after that because he didn't know what he was getting into.
You just see the wheel.
Yeah, exactly. So when we move up there and he gets to come into a larger room that he can walk around and touch things and play, I really wonder, like, is there going to be something out of that room that he's going to want to hang on to as a memento of me? I hope that that's the case. I don't know, though.
That is the case with my little sister. I just thought of something. She does have an item. When I was a wee little boy, I had because I love dogs, my mom bought me the anime movie Balto.
Balto. Mm-hmm.
I had that stuffed dog. And I had that thing. I probably stopped looking at it when I was like 9 or 10. I don't remember when. I never thought of it again until I was like late 20s. And then I had just mentioned something to my little sister, and she said, "Oh, that Balto dog? I found it when I was like 10 and kept it in my room, and then I had mom stitch it up, and it's still in my house, and I won't even let my kids touch it. It's mine." She's like, "You had it, and now I have it," and it's like it's an actual physical thing she carries, and she won't let me near it because she thinks I'm gonna take it back.
Right? Will you?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm downsizing, not upsizing.
That's true. Literally. What is your take on? There's a lot of like those kind of little play sets that you like the Mighty Max style stuff.
Yeah,
there's new ones coming out.
There's Jurassic Park ones. There's some new Playmate Turtle ones. There's those fake Mighty Max where they're Mighty Max but not. But you can't move anything on the inside except for the figure. They're cool. I'm glad that they're doing it. I don't know who the audience is, unless it's more people my age who grew up with it. But I see it as something they'll stop doing that in a decade or less.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I just noticed them the other day and I was just like, oh.
Yeah, I think it's cool. And I think there are channels like Ed's Retro Geek Out and stuff. There are people my age who are starting to show that stuff off and getting people interested again.
Right.
And of course, the Turtles always bring people from the 90s back into collecting, but
oh sure.
The micro stuff has always been just this massive
high and
low.
I also think that there's a a weird kind of linkage between that micro stuff and like a lot of people do the tabletop gaming stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if like 3D printing, if I go online, I'm looking for a specific toy or item or something I can do, I'm going to find 10 instances of a game miniature version of that thing, and then like one instance of what I'm actually looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've often thought about like, well, if I decided I wanted to sell everything off but keep everything, the smart play would be to 3D scan everything, because that technology is only going to get better.
Yeah.
3D scan all my toys and then print out everything that I ever had and then have a smaller display of everything, of all that stuff. That's as far as I would ever go. But then I realized, oh shit, I suck at painting, and by the time I'm old enough that I want to do that, my hands will be so shaky I can't do it. But by then, 3D printing will be a totally different thing, right? That is kind of the, like, another thing. Like, what if, big what if, right? What if 3D printing was something where you had an option to make something that was guaranteed to break down after 20 years? Like at the 20-year mark, it fizzles out, right? So you could make all the stuff you ever wanted without any fear of like polluting the earth, right? So like people, I wonder, because I think the toy industries, the model industries, all this physical stuff's going to go away the way that we know it, but they'll start selling the digital models that you can print out yourself. And you can make it whatever scale you like, and you'll have a way to slice it and put in different things and
yeah. That will definitely affect Rarity in a way of like,
oh yeah,
because with COVID and everything, people came back to collecting again. And one reason why I was in such a hurry to sell off so much of my 112 scale, hey Stu, of my 112 scale stuff, like the Black Series and stuff, was I know that there is a big drop off where a lot of people have what they want and they're slowing down the 112s collecting, or they're cutting lines out to focus on one or two lines. And I wanted to hurry up and sell my 112 because the prices are going to tank on a lot of that.
Oh yeah. And then I look at like Action Force, where they're just pumping out product, and I like everything that they're doing. That's cool. Yeah, I just had to bring up old Action Force stuff. This
goes up on my claim sale.
Okay, I might have to buy that.
I don't want to. I do love it dearly. It's one of those things where it's like I don't have a place for it. It doesn't fit with anything else.
Right. And like someone was asking me the other day, like, well, let me know if you're looking for like some, old school Joe. I'm like, well, I am, but I have to complete the stuff I have. I have like 24 incomplete vehicles that need to be completed.
But imagine with 3D printing, because like this is hard to get in the U.S. You have to buy this from overseas. Like you have to go on UK eBay, to get these. Right. In the U.S., they're not. They're
at a good price anyway.
Yeah, and it's the price. Would you want to pay? With the boat, which came separately. Would you want to pay $150, $200 plus shipping, or buy I forget what the files, S something.
Oh, STL file.
STL. Yeah. Or would you rather pay $15 to an artist who designed an STL file, $15, and then spend $10 of material and come up with something that's 90% like this?
Right, and you have like, but that's the thing. STL artists, they know what they have, right? So like there is a USS Flag out there that you could scale to either 118 or 112, and that STL file is like $200 or $300, which is not bad considering what you're getting, but also considering that those parts, most of them, you have to additionally slice up to print on most printers, or have to own a crazy big printer to print it. It's like, okay, we're not there yet, right? But I see where it could go, and I don't want to see these things go away forever because that's such a special thing. But when we look at like the culture has shifted, people's wants and needs have shifted, And I think when we talk about toys going away, physical media going away, we hide under the guise of preservation of history. But I think what we're really talking about, and no one likes saying this, but it's an erasure of what's important to us, and we can't comprehend that, and we're angry and we're sad. So we're fighting to keep these things preserved because we don't want it to go away because it means so much to us. But then, on a long enough timeline, if those things that we love become irrelevant, do we become irrelevant? I don't think so, but maybe that's what some people are worried about. And you talk about rarity, I think empathy is becoming more and more rare as an example. And if I could put that up on eBay, it's priceless, right? I think every generation is going to have the things that are important to them. And I think that maybe when it comes to physical things we collect, I think where we have a one-up sometimes. Memories fade. Memories can be messed with, too, whether it be through illness or trauma, or we're fooling ourselves sometimes, right? But if I walk up to that Castle Grayskull, it's going to be the same every single time. You know what I mean? And that has a connection to my past and my parents and my memories and to all my friends that I met through this hobby and everything. And I can't put a price on that. And I think that that's a commodity that we're chasing. Now, do some people collect just out of mindless need to have things? Sure. But it came from everyone started from a pure place. Something pure is at the heart of it. Whether it was, hey, I remember that, or I had a memory about this or that, and I think that just the way that we create those memories is going to be different. And I hope that as we evolve as a society, the way we preserve those memories evolves too. Because you're not going to necessarily see people with shelves of things like this in 30 years. Probably not. And I selfishly hope that we do. But I don't know that society needs that. I don't know. Ian Sweeney, good night, sir. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. And yeah, Stu's getting a tattoo, for those of you that don't know. I might as well say it now. I was going to announce on our panel that if we hit $10,000, that I was also going to get a tattoo. But I didn't get the chance to announce it because I just didn't see a good place to throw it in there. And plus, we didn't hit $10,000, so I'm not getting that tattoo. That's fine. Maybe we'll do a stretch goal for that for my stream in the fall. Who knows?
But congrats to Stu.
Yes, that was awesome. I was so happy to see that total, and I can't wait to see the tattoo. And at least he didn't say I'm going to tattoo a beard on my face. At least he didn't do that. Smart enough not to do that. But man, I did not intend to go in those dark directions, but I think it's part of the discussion, because long enough timeline, everything becomes rare. Everything does. There's going to be a day. Think of a random toy that you see all the time. Everyone has one, right? It was the same thing when we were kids. Everyone had that one thing. But at a certain point, you see it less often because it's been thrown away, it's been burned, whatever. And that's crazy. And, maybe the only thing that anyone will have in 30, 40 years, there'll be a guy that has Power of Grayskull Origins Hero, and will have that Mythic Legion's Dragon, and that's all he's going to have. Because he watched this show and said, you know what? I want to be ahead of this. And he bought those two things, and that's all he bought. So there's some Indiana Jones type character down the road, some archaeologist from the future, opens this long-locked vault, and he finds those two toys and goes, wow, they didn't have much to play with, did they? I think that's a good place to stop right there. Jesse, thanks for being here. I love you to death. We'll talk again soon. I am going to open this. I am going to do it on video. I promise. I've just been busy.
It's up to you. It's your thing.
Yeah. But it's fun. It's fun. But all right, folks, thanks for being here. This is another Monday Night Grinds. My name is Grindhead Jim. As always, I hope the card backs are straight, the grinds are merry. You can find anything you're looking for, any given time at a price you feel is reasonable. And stay awesome. Have empathy.